Aloha, it's Antonio with HypnosisProductReviews.com. Today I've got Scott Sandland from HypnoThoughts and one of the infamous parties behind HypnoThoughts Live. Before we dive into it, I have a quick question. A quick question that you guys can ponder on. So I got this ordinary carrot cake here. I know Scott's probably heard the story behind this. I just want to ask you a question. What do you think a simple carrot cake like this has to do with addiction, such as me quitting smoking, quitting drinking, etc.? Just ponder that, and towards the end of the podcast, I'll dive into what the chemicals in this have to do with quitting smoking and everything else. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing, Antonio?
Good. You've heard this story, right?
I have. I know exactly where you're going with that.
I will go to the end of the podcast. I went to the store today for some aspirins. I have a small headache, and then I found that. I was like, oh, I've got to use this for the intro.
Sure.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard about HypnoThoughts Live, I met you in 2010 on the Queen Mary at Igor Ledachowski's thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And at that point, you'd already done Hypno Summit once or twice, I believe.
We had done it at least once, probably twice.
And I mean, that was revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, that was streaming video. I mean, you think about the fact that we're just taking this for granted, right? When I was doing the Hypno Summits, you couldn't get better than 320 by 240 little grainy, crappy video to stream. And that was the best you could do. And the fact that we were doing live streaming video was blowing people's mind.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's the easiest thing in the world. But that was, in 2007 was the first time we did one. No, 2009 was the first time we did one.
Because HypnoThoughts came out in
07.
07.
So hypnothoughts.com came out early 07, and in 09 we did the first conference.
Now, can you tell people? I think I know how HypnoThoughts came to be. Can you tell me like what really kicked it off?
Yeah. So the long story short of it is I created it. I just built it and then let it sit there. I didn't do anything with it for a little while. Just my friend told me that there was this place to start your own social network. So I grabbed hypnosis.ning.com because that was the name of the platform, Ning. And I didn't do anything with it. Because I didn't have a mailing list. I didn't have a reason to have people go anywhere. I just kind of created something. And then one of my mentors passed away. A woman named Janet Macy passed away. And I didn't have a blog. I didn't have a Facebook really. There weren't the same things that were going on that we have now. And so I just posted like functionally my eulogy, right? That was like my goodbye to Janet on that page, just because there was an easy blog button. And so I just did it there. And I just sent that link to a couple people who knew Janet, and they commented and shared it with a few people, and it just kind of went, a very small version of viral. And the rest is history, really.
Yeah, it's funny when you say a small version of viral. You know how sometimes we get people in this field that say, I'm a world famous hypnotist. I'm like, here's the world, here's us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
very small community.
I joke around that, when I go to HypnoThoughts, I am important at HypnoThoughts. But I mean, even at Igor's thing, when you and I met that first time, almost everybody in the room had no idea who I was, right? There were maybe a dozen people out of 100 who had any clue that I was a hypnotist, right? And then if you even abstract that out away from hypnosis, I'm a guy who has a website for people who think hypnosis is neat, right? Like, I mean, you can really get rid of the ego really fast as soon as you start saying it that way.
I just interviewed Kevin Lapine about a month ago, and he talked about how you're famous when some total random stranger comes up and knows who you are. Yeah. Other than that, not so much.
And even then, so we made some YouTube videos for the Newport Clinic, and just some ads, some Facebook ads, some YouTube pre-roll ads. We were just kind of experimenting with a couple of different things. And I had a couple of people come up to me like, you're the hypnosis strangers. You're the hypnosis guy. And I was like, I am. How do you know that? And they said, I've seen your ads. And I was like, oh, fantastic. So, I mean, you can have strangers come up to you and know exactly who you are and what you do and still not be relevant or important.
Yeah.
That's just, you can do that for $18 in YouTube ads.
Yeah, you got to pay for it. That's the thing.
Yeah, but it's not expensive these days.
I don't know. The price point is way down.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was the main inspiration for HypnoThoughts Live? What really drove you to do it?
It's actually a really funny story. I'm going to be completely honest about this. People are going to be surprised how candid I am. So on hypnothoughts.com, there was we were going to all the other conferences. I've been going to the IMDHA conference since the 90s. And we've always been going to conferences. And the NGH conference was the largest. It was the biggest one for a long, long time. And ABH was bigger, ACHE was bigger, but then NGH took over, and NGH was the biggest for a couple decades maybe. And so some people said, hey, we want to meet up while we're all at the NGH conference. Let's make some buttons. And I said, yeah, let's make some buttons. I'll make the buttons. I'll give them away or charge you whatever they cost. And I won't charge any, I'm not going to try to make money off these buttons just so you guys can identify each other. And Michael Elner, who's an old friend of mine, said, you should run this by the NGH before you start making buttons for their thing. And I said, you know what, you're right. And so, and this was all public forum stuff. And so I said, let me just shoot this over to the NGH. I sent them a real nice letter that just says, hey, I'll buy a booth. I'm not even going to come, but I'll buy a booth just to pay for the buttons. I won't buy a booth. I'll do whatever you guys want. These people want buttons so they can find each other from the site better. What do we need to do to make this okay? And they wrote back, how dare you try to promote your site at our event? Stay the hell away from us. And it was kind of a mean letter, to be honest. And so I told everybody, I will tell you what they say. And so I told them what they said. And then it just exploded into this, angry thing. I remember. And, not to get into names, but, some important NGH people started writing some very not nice things and were implying that my intentions were anything else. But I was just responding to a request from members. And there was no secretness. And they were saying, how dare you, all that. And so Richard Clark and I were really laughing about it because, again, this is for people who think hypnosis is neat. It's a very small thing. Let's not get our egos wrapped up in it. And so Richard and I were joking. We're like, man, now you really should go to the NGH convention. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I go, do you think someone will punch me? Do you think they'll kick me out, call security? What do you think will happen? Because the idea of me asking to give them money to have buttons was offensive. What would happen if I showed up? And so then Richard and I joked. We said, what we should do is just get an RV and park it across the street and just say, we're a fun thing. And we were never going to do it. We were just totally, it was a 20-minute joke that we were just kind of laughing about. And we would never do that, because that genuinely would intentionally distract people from the reason they're at a thing. And so, but
it's the whole humor aspect of it.
Yeah, it was really just an internal thing. I've never actually told anybody that before. But that's what we were going to do. And then we said, you know what? We got a big thing here. We got a lot of people who want to go. What if we just make a fun conference in Vegas and don't take ourselves seriously? I've been to over 50 hypnosis conferences. That's a lot of 50 is a big number. And so I know what they're like and I know what I like about them and what I would change. And so we said, let's just try it and let's see if we can get 100 people. And that's what we did.
The first, okay. What have the numbers been? Is this the fifth one?
Fourth.
This is the one coming up is the fourth one?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
It seems longer than that.
I know. Isn't that stupid? This is our fourth coming up.
Man, you know what it is? It's definitely got the family feel to it. So, and even how I'm going to talk about the carrot cake, that it's got associations with that. That's insane. It's only been 4?
Uh-huh.
When did it start?
4 years ago.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
13. Oh, 13 then?
13. Yep.
Wow. I thought, okay. I stand corrected. I thought this was like the 5th going on the 6th. And I'm probably not the only one.
No, I'm sure. It's one of those things where in a really wonderful way, people sort of take it for granted now and just accept it as part of the landscape. And it's become so normal. And part of the reason for that is because HypnoThoughts Live happens once a year, but HypnoThoughts happens every day, right? Yep. And it's the largest free resource in the history of the profession. And that's not because I'm really busy. It's because people are active. And so whether it's our Facebook group or whether it's the site itself, in both those things, there's so much activity and there's so much community that it just feels like it's, happening a couple times a year. And people talk about it all the time.
Yeah, okay, so something I'll reveal about this last conference, I think 6 months before this last conference, I had a dream that I was like walking around in Vegas. I was there for some reason, and then I think I saw Igor Lodowski. I'm like, what's he doing in Vegas? And then I realized, I'm like, oh my god, the conference is happening right now. Like, I was late to the conference. I remember I freaked out, and then I woke up and I was like, okay, I still got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So, well, let that be a hint. A hint for people. If you haven't gotten your tickets or anything, register. And are the room codes still working?
Yeah, so the room code only works if you call right now. And you really, 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 if anybody wants a room, you save so much money by using our number because it's the same weekend as the big Floyd Mayweather fight. And so all the rooms are sold out everywhere and they've jacked up the prices. But our number saves you hundreds of dollars just by using your phone instead of the internet to book your room.
I was going to say about the so my girlfriend did. This might help for people in the future if you keep it at the New Orleans. She got on the mailing list, or I don't know if she plays some kind of app, a game on her phone, whatever, it gives her points, whatever. Okay, I heard in the background said something. It's some kind of promo at the casino. So we also got 2 free nights on top of all that.
Yeah, you can do stuff like that. I mean, there's a ton of opportunities. The Orleans is so cool with us because, honestly, because we bring a lot of room nights, right? Like we gambled hard in the first year and lost a little money on it, but it was an investment where we just said, look, we're going to spend a ton of money buying a big room block to get that price down. And the first year we didn't fill it. And so Richard and I had to eat a little bit of that, and that's fine. That was kind of our plan. But now we fill, I mean, our pre and post conference is larger than most conferences now, like just in terms of attendee numbers. Like, we have hundreds and hundreds of people just coming to our pre and post. And then, obviously a lot more coming to the main conference. And so the number of nights we're booking rooms for and the number of meals that we're buying, and then the number of, meals that people are having at the casino surrounding it mean that we're a really good thing for the Orleans. And so they're really good to our people and give deals to our attendees, which is just an awesome relationship.
And and the amount of just for the fact the amount of fun you have is incredible. Even if you don't learn anything, being around friends is well worth it.
Yeah, and that's important to me. We had a hard time Richard and I brainstorming back and forth on where we wanted to put this conference in terms of energy level, in terms of vibe, in terms of professional versus fun versus how many talks versus how much social time, and really thinking it all through and intentionally not saying, well, what's been done in the past is good enough. Like anyone who's been to the conferences knows we experiment with things. And every year we try new things. And we decided that, I take helping people seriously. I really do. And I love the profession of hypnosis, but we don't take ourselves seriously. That goes back to the ego thing. And so we wanted to create something that people were excited and were having fun at, because the relationships we have in the profession is one of the best parts of the profession. The fact that I can call, like your last person you had on here was Melissa Tears, right?
Yeah.
And, the fact I was texting with her yesterday about stuff. Kevin Lapine and I talk, a lot of people who are on your podcast, there's relationships there. And I can get better advice from someone if I understand who they are, and I can give better advice to someone if I've hung out with them socially. And so we're not just, faces on the backs of books or voices that we got on an MP3 set, where we're peers. And our profession is such a lonely one in that respect because, I can sit in this room all day and see clients and never interact with another hypnotist. And I could do that for 10 years. And so creating opportunities for us to connect with each other is really important because outside of that, hypnotists start to believe that they're the only ones or that they are the best, because the clients say, oh my gosh, you helped me when nobody else could. And then it's really easy for that to start sounding like I'm the only one who can help. But the truth is it's hypnosis that's awesome. And when we get to be with each other and hear that I'm not the only awesome hypnotist on earth, you are this person, that person, that person, it grounds me, right? And it grounds us all, which allows us to go back to have better conversations.
Yes. So we're not putting people on pedestals.
Right. I hate pedestals.
We're on the same level.
And so that's one of the reasons why, like when you look at our name badges, I mean, this is such a simple little thing. At the other conferences, a lot of the name badges have, different flair. It says presenter, there's a badge on it, there's a different color, there's a thing hanging off it. And there's all these different ways to say, what kind of status do
The
you
status,
have? And I have had conversations with people at conferences where I can catch them doing that in the conversation, not to get my name, but to validate my rank, right?
Yes.
Like, well, what is your opinion any good or not? And if I'm a presenter or not shouldn't be how we determine that, right?
It should be what you're actually talking about.
Yeah, and if I have to look at your badge to find out if you're full of shit or not, it means I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So it's just such a wasted opportunity. So, we are across the board, all our badges are the same. Everyone's treated the same. And that again goes back to community instead of, putting people on pedestals, which has been, a big tenet of hypnothoughts.com since the beginning.
Oh yeah. And the one thing I do love, I haven't been on the site in a while. One thing I do love is how you rarely censor it.
Yeah.
It's for the large part, it's pretty self-regulatory.
It is. I mean, it was a lot of work early on to get everyone to buy into the rules, right? But once everyone kind of bought into the rules, everyone realized that those rules were better. We created a place for advertising, and then we created a place for actual conversations, and we keep them separate. And we pulled the whole site off Google. I mean, this was a really big decision that we made. Which is a bad decision from a marketing standpoint, right? Because it hurts the number of people that will come to the site. But it means the people who are there can feel safe, right? Because before, Roger Moore, a lot of people know him. He's a famous hypnotist, not just the guy who played James Bond, different Roger Moore.
Yeah.
Out of Seattle. Wonderful hypnotist, smart, knows marketing, been in business for a long time. I've known him. He's one of the first hypnotists I ever met. And he said, my hypnothoughts.com profile is now above my homepage when you search my name. And I said, well, you've been doing marketing for a long time. He said, I pay for Google SEO and you're still beating me. I said, well, that's a huge problem. So because I don't want people to restrict the questions they're asking because they're afraid a client might find out about it. And so for that reason, to better serve the members instead of better serve myself, we pulled the whole thing off Google and kept it private.
That's the antithesis of business.
Yeah. I'm not trying to run a successful business with hypnothoughts.com. I think I've made it really clear over and over that this thing is not designed with business intent. I never built the thing to make money. I never built the thing to be an industry. I built the thing to be a resource for the community, and it continues to be that.
I still owe you either a donation or a shot. Well, you drink what, whiskey or
I do.
Scotch?
Well, either, but I drink way less of it now that I've got a kid.
I would imagine.
Yeah, so there's just there's less social time having drinks with friends, and so I don't drink anywhere near the amount I used to. Well,
I don't either. It's been it'll be a year this month actually.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And congratulations on that, by the way. That's really cool.
Thank you. It was part. I think I don't know if you heard about the whole aversion thing.
I did.
Well, that definitely helped. And then also having support. I was in Ken Gutzel's class last year. That helped big time.
I remember.
Yeah, I think everybody remembers that.
Well, I try to keep track of what's going on at the conference. It's good for me to be aware of things that are happening, especially at the pre and post conference classes, and and people were talking about it. I mean, and it's been a cool thing.
But you heard about the whole infamous dress thing, right? You had it by now.
Oh yeah. I've heard of it all by now.
It was funny because after I did that class with Ken, I always had a bad fear of being judged. As soon as it just melted away, I was like, huh. I remember I went up to our room. It was night of the pajama party. I'm looking for pajamas. I'm like, So I took Pam's beach dress, threw it on there. And that's the last time I'll ever do that because I'm hideous in a dress.
It wasn't your best look.
No, not at all. Definitely not at all.
It's your worst look since you were the Geico caveman as your profile picture for a while.
Oh, that's right. I never actually showed you the actual picture from Halloween, did I?
I don't think so. I remember that was I didn't know that wasn't what you looked like for the first. I don't even know until I. So for a while in my head, you looked like a Geico caveman.
So I'll try to put the picture up here. It was basically Halloween. I was the Geico caveman from the Billie Jean, the tennis commercial, wearing the super short shorts. I had girlfriend gave me mascara put on my hair, so it just basically makes it pull out. And she had a T-shirt that says "So easy a caveman can do me." It was a great costume.
It was an amazing costume, and that was my mental picture of you for like the first year and a half that you and I had talked online.
That's right. Sometimes I get lazy. I'll put a picture up. I'm like, I'm not going to take it down.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so but that's my point, right? Like the importance of the conference is, to have an actual conversation with you, to know what you really actually look like instead of just being a profile picture.
A two-dimensional picture.
Yeah, to have your profile picture. This is completely random, but it's weird. The number of people who meet me at Hypnothoughts Live and say, "Wow, you're taller than I thought." And I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not incredibly tall or short. I think 6 feet tall is a pretty normal height.
Yeah, you're kind of tall. I've never really. Maybe I did think about it, but I wasn't.
Yeah, the number of people who go, "Wow, I thought you were like 5'9", 5'10", and I go, "Why do people think that?" And they said, "I don't know. There's something about your profile picture that looks like a 5'10" guy," and I don't even know what that means. But it's just. And another random example, Michael Elner, right? A mentor of mine for a long time, great guy, wonderful practitioner. People who've never met him in person,
I know exactly where you're going with this,
don't like him anywhere near as much as people who met him in person. And once you meet him in person, you understand his writing so much more. I think of all the hypnotists I know, Michael loses more in writing. And he's not bad in writing, but there's so much better in person because you can feel the sincerity and the good place it comes from when it's face to face.
And Michael and I it's almost like he's trying to protect somebody or be like a fatherly figure.
Yeah, I mean, Michael and I have known each other for a long time. I don't know, 16 years, 17, 18 years, something like that. I mean, long time, and. He remembers the first conference I ever went to in the 90s. So, I must know him 17 years now. He and I have gotten into shoving matches about basketball games at conferences that we're watching. We were like betting on the Thunder versus the Lakers or something like that and shoving each other and jumping up and down and cheering and stuff like that. And that excitement that we have together, that shared moment, means he and I can have better client conversations forever. Right.
I'm sorry. It's I think I've heard maybe Igor or somebody else talk about this. It's about who talked about this about it's about rapport, but it's not rapport just on one thing. You're not just rapport on hypnosis.
Right. It's not context dependent rapport.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a true around understanding of who the human being is, right? And that's just more fun. I probably wouldn't like Richard Barker if I hadn't met him in person. I don't think I dislike him, or I would dislike him. I like him, but I don't think I would dislike him. I think I just wouldn't care, right? He would just be a stage hypnotist who's doing well that would be completely off my radar. But I met him at the first Hypnothoughts Live, and I asked him, like, we were just talking, and I asked him a direct question, and he gave me a direct answer, and I was like, "Wow, you're a straight shooter." He goes, "Yeah, so are you." Because there was a mix up on something, and I said, "What do you think about this?" And he goes, "That sucks." And I go, "Well, this is how it is." And he goes, "Okay." And we both handled it so like comfortably and straightforward and all that I was like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have happened online. He would have just stayed some stage hypnotist who's doing well that I don't care about.
Oh yeah, he's we've had a lot of good jabs at each other.
Yeah, he's good natured in that, right?
We're all friends.
Yeah, and that is. If you talk about like doctors, right, or lawyers, or any of these other professions, they go to school together for years, and we don't, right? Like hypnotists go to a class or two that lasts a week or 3. And so the idea of building bonds and relationships has to be something we work hard at afterwards.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, I don't know if you saw this. I posted a couple weeks ago. I was actually at a activity booth I work at, which thank God it's not timeshare anymore. After doing 6 years of
on this, you hated that.
But yeah, long story short, finally got out of that. The story I was going to go into, I worked for a new company, straight commission selling activities, and this the cruise ship was in, and this lady was going to go. She said she worked on the cruise ship, so I asked her what she does, She's like, oh, I'm a hypnotist. I was like, that's funny. So I start naming names. I start naming like Richard Barker,
Kelly Carl.
yeah, all these names. And she looked confused. And I was like, you know what? I went like this, grabbed my phone. I looked her up on Facebook. We were already Facebook friends.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah, Deanna Nunez. And so she was at Hypnothoughts. You know Deanna. I think she was at
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yep.
And I was blown away. So I was like, oh, that's a small world. That's, I think, 2 people I've met in Hawaii that were members of Hypnothoughts Live. Mm-hmm. You're already bringing people together.
Yeah, that's what the whole thing is for. And people for years have been saying, you've got to figure out how to make money off Hypnothoughts. You got to figure out how to monetize this thing for you. And I keep saying, why? Why? I mean, they're asking the wrong questions, right? You know, I see a lot of clients. I make money seeing clients. There's so much opportunity for hypnotists to take from each other, and so many hypnotists aren't making any money. And I don't understand why I need to be taking it when we could just be making things that are good. You know, I've got a conference, I've got a school, I've got a clinic, I've got all these other things. Why can't we just have something that's designed to help the hypnotists? And so that's what we've got.
So I do love Hypnothoughts. Now, what
Oh, if you love Hypnothoughts, let me just say, the version of Hypnothoughts right now that's up is Hypnothoughts 3.0.
It's kind of clunky.
Yeah. So what happened 18 months ago, I got an email that basically said, you've got 90 days to remove all your content from this website. You've got so much content on here. Ning, the platform, has been sold to Glam Media. Glam Media got sold. There's all this stuff that happened. And so long story short, the entire platform and servers were all going to be gone in 90 days. And I had, millions and millions of, pages of stuff that I had to save, and there was no resource to do it. So I had to hire these guys to build something in a hurry. And that's what is still up. It was intentionally built as a lifeboat is the way I've been thinking of it. And I was actually just looking at it yesterday. What's Hypnothoughts 4.0? It's the newest version. We've been playing with it. We've been streamlining it for a little while now, and I'm going to launch it. Right around the same time as the conference. I'm in beta testing it now, so it'll be ready in a month. So it's really exciting. Having something that size. It turns into, I really see myself as a, I don't own it. I am responsible for it, right? I'm a custodian of it. And that's, it's a job that I don't take lightly. I think the amount of information and the amount that's been shared, for a decade now, it's 10 years old. 10 years worth of sharing information, 10 years worth of asking questions, 10 years worth of, announcing births and deaths and all those things that have happened on that site. I want to preserve it, and I want to make sure it continues to grow and continues to help other hypnotists.
How many people are on that? 15,000?
Almost 25,000. Yeah. So almost 25,000. It's, it's big.
I didn't know we had that many hypnotists. Yeah. People interested in it.
Yeah. Well, that's because they stay alone, right?
True.
Most hypnotists don't go to conventions. Most hypnotists don't talk to other hypnotists. Most hypnotists just stay in their office and see clients. And I get that. Most hypnotists don't want to be in Facebook groups and clog their Facebook profile with their work stuff. And so one of the nice things about Hypnothoughts is it's not on Facebook. As nice as it would be to be on the phone and to be as plugged into push notifications and stuff like that. For some people, the opposite is really nice to have a place where you're not mingling work and politics and your kids' birthday pictures,
True.
But a place that you're just talking about one thing with colleagues is what we're up to. So Hypnothoughts 4.0 is going to be out in about a month.
Awesome. Because is it going to be similar to Ning, or is it going to be more user-friendly like Ning?
It's going to be, Ning was very stable. I really appreciated that. I mean, it had a 99.9% uptime. It didn't go down. It didn't break. But there was no development. There was no new features. There was no investment in anything. And so it just kept kind of just not progressing. And so really what I've done with 4.0 is picked the simple things that people care about the most and put those in an easy to read place. So the search button's easy to figure out, the discussion forum's easy, the videos in the groups are easy, and keep all that stuff right on the homepage so people can get involved and make it simple.
One thing I would love to see on there is, especially maybe this is primarily for people that live in remote locations such as I, but if you had anything like some kind of search function where you could do like a geographical thing.
So we have twice built member maps, right? And what we found is that half the people love it and half the people hate it. I built it twice. I paid to have it built twice because I thought it was an awesome feature. And both times people were opting out of it because they didn't want other hypnotists to know where they lived because it was too specific. And then when I made it an opt-in, type in your address, not enough people wanted to actually do it. So it looked like there were 12 people on the site that when we had 9,000.
And then it doesn't
serve the So, well, no, it doesn't serve the purpose because if you say, oh, there's no hypnotists near me, but there are 7, they just haven't gone and filled the thing out because they don't care to fill the thing out and they just figure it auto-populates. And so you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't with that. So it's a little tricky. It's always something that I thought people would want, and I was really surprised by the feedback that people didn't want it as much as I did. And apparently you.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we were the 2 people put our addresses in.
Well, yeah, exactly. We had 9,000 members at the time, the last time I built it. And of the 9,000, and we were, 2,000 visitors a day and, 2,000 unique visitors a day. And less than 1,000 people filled the thing out. So, a fraction. And so at that point you go, that's not doing what it's supposed to do.
And it's just wasting time and money.
Yeah. and maintaining it and doing all those things is just surprisingly difficult.
Well, I've lucked out that not using any kind of technological feature, I've had, like I said, hypnotists just walk by my booth. One day I was reading the Meta Programs book by, I think, Rose Charvet.
Okay.
I'm reading the book, and I look up, and I was like, God, that guy looks like Mark Cunningham. I look back at my book. I look up, I'm like, holy shit, smart. He just happened to be walking. I'm like, Mark. And it was funny. We talked for a minute, but funny story. I found out that him and my dad were from the same town, really small town in Michigan, wow. Adrian, Michigan, really small town. And my dad told me when he was little, he was at at the bank, and apparently the bank teller gave my dad too much money. So my abuelita, my grandma, told my dad to, I think she had my dad write the bank teller a letter saying, you know what, thank you, but you gave me too much money. Somehow, kids forget to do stuff, never turn the letter in. So we come to find out that the bank teller was some Miss Cunningham. So from the town that Mark's in, there's a lot of Cunningham. So just looking at that, there's so many coincidences. And I was like, wow, it's a small little world. It
really is. It's one of those 6 degrees of separation. And if we can just figure out a way to, everyone's talking about this now, the idea of making the world just a little bit smaller, making relationships just a little bit bigger, because there's so many people that are just talking about things that piss each other off. And so many people who are super liberal, who hate the Republicans, and Republicans hate the Democrats. And there are people who are pro-Trump or anti-Trump or pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit or whatever the thing is.
You've seen my Facebook.
Yeah, and there's so many people that are focusing on those conversations, which is fine. It's nice to have a place where we're focusing on what we have in common. Yeah. And it's good to be able to have all sorts of conversations. And one of the things I like about what we've done is we've created a place where you can have conversations about a thing that we all care about, and it's just going to stay on topic. And there's all sorts of other places to have other conversations, but the way the discussion forum works with threaded replies and a rich graphic interface and a text editor and all those things is so much better than Facebook for that. Facebook does a lot of things better for a lot of reasons. They've got billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I was actually at Facebook headquarters maybe a month ago. I was getting a tour because my brother-in-law works there. And, he works in the Oculus Rift thing. So we were playing with virtual reality stuff and all that. And his office is this cool thing. But, I was getting this tour of Facebook and I was like, it's bigger than Disneyland with more restaurants and it's all free. So you just walk in and everything's free. And they have welding shops and bike shops that are free and ice cream parlors that are free. And it's just this town. They have dental offices and medical offices that are free. It's fascinating. And it's this huge thing that is all powered by people just sharing pictures of their kids, right? And ranting about random shit in traffic. And that's really telling that we care about communication, and we care about being able to express ourselves and see what other people are expressing so much that it can power these, massive companies. Google and Facebook own most of the largest communication systems on Earth now.
Oh, you said Google and YouTube?
Facebook.
Facebook,
Google,
okay.
Because Google owns YouTube, right?
So the two biggest search engines right there.
So you look at, those are the biggest search engines, but then you look at Facebook Messenger, and then Instagram and Snapchat
and all this.
You look at all of those, and you look at how just a couple companies are owning all the way we communicate. And the reason they do is because they understand that our communication is valuable. And so the fact that we can have a place where we can have high quality conversations in private is what I'm really proud of for HypnoThoughts. And then the fact that we can have a place where we can come together to celebrate that and to celebrate each other and get to know each other better is what the conference is for. And that's what I love.
Folks, if you have never been to this, what the hell are you doing? If you look above or below, you'll see a link to HypnoThoughts Live. Now, I know you're doing a pre-talk, right?
Post.
What's the post talk on again?
It's a class that's designed for people who've been studying hypnosis, mostly online, or taking classes here and there, but haven't spent a lot of time actually getting real-time feedback on what they're doing. So I have a conversation that lasts 2 days where I say, okay, why do you do that? Why are you doing this? What should you do in this situation? What do you do when you're stuck? And we actually work through what it's like to work with clients. Because that's not, when you're in a class, your partner just saw the same demo that you saw. And so you will kind of play along. And so when you go to the real world, the person doesn't respond the right way because they didn't know how they were supposed to respond.
Yeah, demo's totally different.
And then the person freaks out, the practitioner freaks out. And so the whole class is, okay, fundamentals, why you say this sentence before this, where you put your feet in a rapid induction, and why that actually matters. What questions strategically you ask, when you should or shouldn't give advice, and why you do it. And the whole class isn't me telling you how to do it. My whole class is really designed about helping you find your voice and your style. And the idea is you can do hypnosis any way you want. The point of the class is you should know why you're doing it. And because that's what I was taught, or because I felt like it, aren't allowed in class. You need to be able to defend your reasoning, because then that allows us to have better conversations. And that's the idea of the class.
That's how you get growth.
I joke, the last time I taught this class, I was joking, you get two people who are trained hypnotists and they're taking turns being the client and the practitioner, right? And so the first person goes and says, okay, I'm the client first. And they say, I'm afraid of dogs, and I don't like heights, or, I want to be better at paying my bills on time, or whatever their thing is, right? And so they do a process and they do a session and they switch. And they go, okay, now that person is now the practitioner. And they say, well, how can I help you today? And you go, time out. Yeah. What the hell was that? You just became a whole different person with a whole different voice. And they go, well, I was getting into my therapist persona. And you go, what was that? Why does your voice change just because you're trying to help somebody? And I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. I'm saying you have to know why you're doing it. Everything needs to be a conscious decision. I think it's a crazy, lazy cop-out that you go take a good class, right? I mean, even take a class from somebody I really respect, right? Take David Snyder, right? David Snyder and I have known each other for 15 years, and he teaches at HypnoThoughts Live every year, and he has a really great time. And David Snyder and I do some stuff really the same way and some stuff differently, because we kind of, grew up in hypnosis together for years, practicing with each other. So some of the stuff we do the same, some of the stuff we do is different. And if someone starts doing something the way David Snyder does, technically David is very sound, so it's probably a good thing to do. But if they say, well, that's what David does, that's the wrong answer, right? David, if I ask him, why did you do that? And he would be able to explain, I did that because of this and because of this and because of that. And because of that, he's making conscious decisions, which means he's flexible and he can do a better job every time. If all you're doing is saying, this is what my instructor did, so that's what I do, it means you're not that much better than an MP3 player.
David could be a better version of him than you could be of him.
Yeah, exactly. And David or anyone, of course, can grow in the profession because they can make assessments of what did I do and what could I have done better and why. And the whole class that I teach is about your ability to understand why you're making the decisions you're making and to show your work so that we can understand where the opportunities to improve are. And it's really fun. It's really, conversational and back and forth and walking through how to do actual client work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, what is the price of that bad boy?
It's super cheap. I don't even know. It's like a couple $100. It's crazy cheap. And it's connected to, it's not a requirement, but it's connected to HPTI. We have a school that's a 1-year school that's 700 hours. And so we have the class there because I teach that class once a quarter for HPTI students. So they can come in and take an in-person class when they've been learning online. But yeah, the idea is with HPTI or with any of this, we think, a week-long class or a 2-week-long class is just nowhere near enough to start a profession, a career. You're going to put a month of work into your career. Like, think about that sentence. It's your career. Your people are going to count on you to help them. And you're like, well, I trained with someone really good. Fantastic. I was sitting next to Leonardo da Vinci for a month. Can I paint well? Probably not, right? It takes 9 months to make a baby. You know what I mean? Things take time. And this idea that the person you trained with is so good it only takes a week is just not a thing. That's just not a thing. And so we created a year-long program that's all online, and it's super cheap. It's like $2,000 for a year. Like, it's crazy cheap.
That's really cheap.
It's really cheap. And you train with Richard Nongard, Melissa Tiers, Sean Michael Andrews, David Snyder,
Michael
Watson, James Hazelrig, Brennan Smith, the Carsons. I'm sure I'm leaving a lot of people out. It's this huge program. Roy Hunter.
Is this in person or is it
It's online. So what we do is we do online. So it's recorded classes. You do Q&A with the instructor every class. There's tests and projects, and then you meet in person and get a field supervisor as well. So it's a hybrid. And we start every August. So we start at Hypnothoughts, and we graduate at Hypnothoughts. And so, we don't spend a lot of time promoting it, right? I mean, we really, Richard and I have so much going on. We let people know about it kind of quietly, but it's a 700-hour training program with some of the most diverse instructors in the profession. And it's as cheap as a lot of their 1-week programs.
Yeah.
And they take a pay cut because they believe in it. And I mean, honestly, the reason we picked our number is because I surveyed a couple thousand hypnotists, and they told me you take 500 to 700 hours of training before you're ready to see a client. And so we created a program that was 500 to 700 hours so people would be ready to help people.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I need to get in that program.
People love it, and you can take just any one class, right? You could take one individual class, any of them, except our internship program. That it's a weekly thing where we come in with case studies. So everyone takes turns being the person on the spot. So when it's your turn, you come in, you say, okay, this was my client. The client's a 42-year-old male, married with 2 children, wants to stop smoking. This week was my second session. Here's what he said. Here's what we did. Here's what I was thinking. And then every other member in the class asks questions and gives feedback. And the whole thing just means we're all learning approaches and how we see clients. And we're all taking turns being the one in the chair, and everyone's picking on them.
So
right?
it's basically a mastermind.
It is. But it's better than a mastermind because it's actually designed around field supervision, not just brainstorming. So masterminds are cool, but this is actually based on clinical supervision models that are designed to help you be a better clinician.
Awesome. God,
so that's what we created at HPTI. We actually created a program that we think, if the government came in tomorrow and said hypnosis should be regulated, we believe our program would be the one they would accept, because we modeled other state licensed programs when we created it. So we think it's good.
So eventually, if regulation ever does come under, you guys are pretty much one step ahead.
Yeah, and I don't think regulation's coming anywhere near as much as a lot of other people kind of say it does when they say, "Oh, you got to pay your dues so we don't get
Yeah.
regulated."
Yeah.
It's a bad math problem for the states because the states then would have to spend money regulating us, and there's no need to right now because there's so few complaints. So it's
Yeah.
a solution looking for a problem. But if it happened, and I don't know what it would be, somebody hypnotized, some street hypnotist makes a YouTube video and some other kid watches that street hypnosis video and does
And
something
ends
wrong.
up hurting somebody.
Yeah, someone gets hit by a car, some crazy thing. I mean, and that's crazy. But if that happens and there's some big pushback, yeah.
Maybe.
But we didn't create the program in case licensure happens. That's not why we created the program. And it's not why we modeled it that way. We created the program because we think what it is the best way to prepare hypnotists.
And what's already lacking in the community?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we don't have an actual, HPTI has a 2-week class on laws and ethics. And I guarantee no other program has a 2-week class on law and ethics. The closest is HMI, and HMI is, good. Ours is different. And I like HMI. HMI is a cool place. George and I are friends. I'm friends with a number of their instructors. I've taught there. But most hypnosis schools, if you've got a weekend class, there's no way in hell you're going to spend enough time on law and ethics. And it's really, really important because when you've got a 14-year-old client who tells you they're smoking pot and the mom says, "Hey, is my kid smoking pot?" You go, "I don't want to tell you." You go, "Look, I'm paying the bill. This is my child. He's a minor. I'm a lawyer. Is my kid smoking pot or not? What are you supposed to do?" And if you don't know the actual answer to that question,
you're screwed.
You're not ready to see that potential client. Okay, and what other questions are there out there that you haven't considered that are actually just really obvious black and white things that you should be educated on?
Okay, let's not just devolve into this topic, but what would, in that particular example, what would be the right thing to do?
See? Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on what state you're in. It depends on your paperwork. Okay. It depends on a lot of things. But for me, and the question is, are you asking legally or ethically? Because those aren't the same thing either. Laws and ethics are different. For me, it's real simple. I just say, look, I've got boundaries. Your kid is my client. You are not my client. I don't care how much you pay me. Your kid is my client, and I'm not telling you anything your kid ever tells me. My client is my client. And as soon as I tell you anything, it means I've violated the trust of my client, and that means it hurts my ability to help them. And they go, "Well, if they're not doing drugs, you can just tell me no." I said, "That's not true. I can't confirm or deny anything that happens in this session, even when it's going to make you happy.
Unless the kid gave you permission.
Unless the kid gives me very specific permission, right?
Yeah.
And just the laws and ethics of those sorts of things, right? Really matter. What about refunds? What about package deals? I mean, if you sell a 5-package deal to someone, they only do 2 sessions and they want a refund for those other sessions, are you legally or ethically obligated to give them that money back for the sessions they didn't come to? In the state of California, you have to give the money back. And if you don't, you just violated the law. So, there's just things like that a lot of hypnotists don't pay attention to.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that are breaking that law.
Yeah, there's a ton of people breaking that law. And there's a lot of people who are not, having the clients fill out the legally required paperwork. There's a lot of hypnotists in Washington who aren't registering with the state they're supposed to, or Colorado for that matter. And they don't know what the rules are.
In Washington and Colorado, they're unique in the sense that I know they're unique in the sense that isn't it?
They have very different rules. Colorado has the dumbest rules on hypnosis in America.
I know Zolita was fighting that for a long time.
Zolita's fight was different. Zolita's fight was with the state over some stuff, and she won because she should win. But no, I've talked to people who helped write the laws for Colorado, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I had a long conversation with the individual. The person has no clue what they're talking about. I've talked to a lot of people about hypnosis. I've talked to a lot of people in law and unions and all those things. The person's just crazy and stupid. Washington's laws are phenomenal. I think the laws in Washington should be the laws in every state. I think they're great because it means you are registered as a hypnotist. You're not licensed, which means the state has the power of law to stop you from working if you're a bad guy, but it doesn't define scope of practice. So all these people who say, well, you can't define what hypnosis is. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you totally can. As much as you can define what counseling is, right? There's all that. It's a lame argument. And there's if you just no, there's really. I'm not pro or anti licensure. What I like is registration, because that means the state actually has the ability to stop someone from legally practicing. Now, could they still practice? Well, of course, but they can also rob liquor stores, but we're just talking about, locks keep honest people out.
I like your impersonation of people. That sounds like Kermit the Frog. I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's just these really, really lazy arguments that aren't well thought through, that are just people just trying to rationalize why they shouldn't have to work hard. And that's what we get a lot in hypnosis. Well, when am I going to have to know that? Shut up. Like, you're not an 8th grader learning algebra. Like, you're trying to help people in a career. When you need to know it, you'll need to know it, and it will be your job to know it on day one. You have to know it. Even if that client's not coming in, your responsibility ethically to know how to help people. Not just wait until that person shows up and then cram for a final.
Yeah. Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah, ignorance of what's, working in hypnosis. The number of hypnotists who think that their instructor invented stuff that they never invented because they've never done their own homework. James Hazelrigg teaches a history of hypnosis class at HPTI. And if you want to find out what really happened in the history of hypnosis, you should take that class. No one on earth has a better understanding of history of hypnosis than James and the people who take that class. It's freaking great. And everybody, I mean, you guys know James. James is a very low-key, really relaxed, great storyteller. And he tells you what happened in hypnosis. I mean, Charcot, just using him as an example, and not the best hypnotist ever, but, Jean-Martin Charcot is the guy who was an amazing hypnotist. He was also the guy who discovered Lou Gehrig's disease, the ice bucket challenge. That was discovered by Charcot. And he's also the guy responsible for the existence of the vibrator, sex toys. He's the same guy because he was...
Was it Charcot?
Charcot, yeah. He's the reason all that happened. Because he was the guy who did a bunch of the research at the time in hysteria in women, and the root word of that is the same as the root word of hysterectomy. And that was what was going on at the time. And so you get one guy who discovered Lou Gehrig's disease, was a hypnotist, and was, inventor of a whole bunch of sex toys. That's an interesting dude. And he's nowhere near the most interesting part of that class, right? And most hypnotists don't have any idea what Ben Franklin has to do with hypnosis. And Ben Franklin has a lot to do with hypnosis.
You know what? I'm going to, that's going to be a nice tasty bullet to tease people to watch this. So if you're watching this podcast, that bullet, that's a power marketing. That bullet got you watching this.
Yeah. I mean, what does Ben Franklin have to do with hypnosis? What's the history of hypnosis? What are the ethical laws of treating 14-year-old potheads? And by the way, if I say treat, it's because I work in a lot of drug rehab centers and dental offices and doctors' offices. So sometimes I use treat when I'm talking to their clinical teams. I know in our scope of practice, we don't treat anyone, but in a clinical team, you do, because I'm on a treatment team. And our program is designed to help people be ready to be on treatment teams, to be on clinical teams, to work with doctors and to get the referrals. And that's just
not like the weekend addiction programs.
Not the weekend anything programs. I mean, a weekend class is fine once you've already got a lot under your belt and you're adding some stuff. But until you have hundreds of hours, you can, add them 1 week at a time, but then, or 1 weekend at a time. But how are you deciding the order, right? How are you deciding who and what complements each other? We spent a lot of time. We spent years coming up with the order that is best suited to help. And we've gotten a lot of feedback along the way. And for $2,000 to get a year's worth of training. And by the way, all our graduates get access to all the videos forever for free. So they get a lifetime subscription to hundreds of hours of videos with experts for, $200 a month for the first year. And then it's free for life.
It's a no-brainer.
It's such an amazing value. Everybody who's done it says it's so hard. And by the way, it's really, really hard.
You guys also do anatomy. right?
Yeah, we've got anatomy, we've got psychopharmacology, neurology, law and ethics, statistics. We've got a bunch of classes that are designed to make you be ready to talk to professionals. A class on practice building and business, actually writing a business plan and things like that. So we do it all.
Oh, I'm not yawning. You're not boring. I just
No, I'll kick my own ass later.
No, I barely got. I woke up. So we have a neighbor, big Hawaiian guy that snores. It sounds like a bullfrog from the downstairs.
That's awesome to have.
No, it isn't. So, I was talking about this little bad boy.
Yeah, your carrot cake.
Okay, I'm gonna take a bite of this thing. So, if this thing was frozen. Oh God! If you could smell, take a whiff. If you could smell this, it would give you so many anchors. It's kind of melty. So, what does a store-bought carrot cake have to do with hypnosis? Help me with addictions and hypnothoughts. Well, if you've ever been to the New Orleans, you know what it smells like. And about a year ago, actually after the conference, like a month or two after the conference, my girlfriend. Oh God, it's horrible. My girlfriend's like, she has one of these carrot cakes, and she's like, "What's this taste like or smell like?" I take a bite, and oh God, I'm getting all those associations, anchors coming up. I took a bite. I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, "Here, take another bite." So I'm like sitting here. It's almost like I'm getting flashbacks of like I'm thinking about hypnosis. I'm like, what the hell is this? This bad boy smells and this bad boy tastes like the New Orleans smells.
So all the Vegas casinos pump different scents through their air conditioning systems. Oh. And for whatever reason, the one that the Orleans uses is the same smell as those carrot cakes.
Oh, it's weird. It doesn't really, I'm not going to eat the whole thing up. That's gross. So don't let that scare you away from hypnothoughts.
It's worth the carrot cake smell.
Oh man, I almost thought about shipping you one of those, but I don't think it would actually make it. I think it's really gross. But the funny thing is, anytime when I take a bite out of it, I get this happy kind of feeling. It's that anchor where I get this happy feeling.
I mean, the amount of fun we have at that conference. I mean, we stay up late. It's the only conference I know where people come early just to see each other, and people stay late just to hang out. Like, no conference does that. People leave halfway through Sunday at other conferences. People stay extra days just to get to know each other at our conference. And that tells you everything you need to know. People are trying to get out early.
One of my, I don't know if I ever told you the story. I think it was the first conference I was at a roulette table, and this lady asked me what I do back home. I told her I'm a hypnotist. And she, so she knew I was there for the conference, and she's like, you know what? People have tried to hypnotize me, but it didn't work. So I'm sitting here. I had a couple of drinks. I'm like, I'm just going to have fun. Don't do this for future reference. Like I started with this.
Yeah.
Don't do this. So, so I just use, I'm not going to say I'm an expert with any kind of hypnotic language or anything, but I just use questions to revivify. I asked her if she's ever been in a car, daydreamed, etc. And you could tell her she had that kind of glossy look in her eyes. And I asked her, I'm like, what causes you to daydream? And she told me she daydreams at the tables. I'm like, what causes you to daydream at the table? She's like, well, when people start playing with their chips. I'm like, okay. I'm playing with my chips, just talking to her. And about 2 minutes later, this guy walks up. I think he looked maybe like from Eastern Europe, just the stature, Eastern European, wearing glasses. He threw $100 on the table. Guy came across kind of like an asshole. She spun the wheel, and all of a sudden you could hear her. She's like, oh, shit, stop the wheel. She's like, that's never happened before. She gave everybody my color chips. I think she was just like daydreaming, like, la, 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 and just passed everybody. I think they were beige chips. At that point, my brother looked at me. He's like, stop it. At that point, we're like, yeah, we better walk away.
Yeah, you don't want to do anything to impact or manipulate anybody who's working for a casino.
Yeah, and like that wasn't even my intention. Then I realized that I was like, yeah, I probably should not play around with this. I mean, that just shows you the power of it.
Yeah.
But don't use it for evil.
No, probably not.
Now, one last thing. Oh God, the Orleans stuck my mouth all day. One last thing. Have you can you tell the mechanical sex pig story now? I missed that story.
How have you missed that story? So here's where that story comes from. It's too long to tell right now, but I'll tell you where that story came from. It came from HPTI. It came from our school. So our first year at HPTI, because we do these live webinars and these Q&As every week. And, only the instructor can be seen. Everyone else is just, calling in and can be heard. And our school's really hard, especially that first year. We hadn't dialed in, where to put the order of classes, and we didn't have any breaks. And the students were fried. They really were. And Richard Clark calls me, and he says, okay, we've got class in 2.5 hours. And we're really about to lose 6 to 8 students. Like, they're about to quit. Like, everyone is done. Everyone is fried. And you need to rally the crew. You need to get everybody excited again like they were. They're just burned out. And I said, well, what do I need to do? And he goes, I don't know. That's what you do. I don't do that. You need to get everybody happy.
You're the face. He works on the back end.
Yeah, he's the organization. I'm the interaction. I'm the people person. And so I had 2.5 hours to come up with, what am I going to say during class tonight that's going to get the students happy and excited again? So I racked my brain. I only had 2.5 hours to come up with something. And, I was thinking, okay, I'll motivate them, do like the St. Crispin's Day speech from Henry V. I'll come up with something dramatic. And then I was like, no, I'm going to go the other way with it. I'm going to go light and fun. And so I got that. And so the first time I told that story, I told it into a webcam with no feedback, no sound. And I told it as a clinical supervision story. So, I just said, okay, for internship tonight, it's my turn. And I'm going to talk about the client that I've seen and what happened. And I told the robot sex pig story as a clinical supervision case study. And then, I unmute, I go, are there, so that's my presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. Are there any questions? And let's go around the room. And I unmuted it, and everyone was laughing their asses off because the shock value of that story is just plain fun. Yeah, so I've shared it in Las Vegas as more of a stand-up comedy act.
Was that the one where that kid had to do earmuffs?
Yeah, that was in there. And so I'm actually doing stand-up again this year. I don't do it every year. But Richard Barker is going to do the show. We're only going to do one show. We're going to do a bowling tournament. Oh my gosh, everybody. We're having a bowling tournament this year. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to create a situation where everyone can just kind of hang out and get to know each other. And so there's a kind of a lazy activity that doesn't take a lot of time or attention, but it's super social and fun.
What day is that?
Oh God, it's the same day as Jason Linnett's keynote. So one night is Friday, the stand-up. I think Saturday is the stand-up and Friday is the keynote and bowling alley. And bowling tournament. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And if you don't, get on our HypnoThoughts live Facebook group. If you don't have a team, it's teams of 5. If you don't have a team, that's okay. We're putting teams together too. Get on HypnoThoughts live Facebook group and get on a team. We've already got well over 100 people signed up for the tournament. So that's 100 hypnotists bowling together.
How much is the tournament?
Oh, I think it's like $5 or $7 a person. You're just paying for your own shoes. Like, we're paying for the lanes, you're paying for your shoes, right?
So I am horrible at bowling.
Oh, everyone's horrible at bowling. That's why we chose this activity. Nobody cares.
Actually, you know what? It's funny. I made sure to wear my Ken Guzzo shirt.
I see that. Yeah.
Got my Ken Guzzo. I can kind of do a bowling with this. If anybody wants to do a bowling team, I'm contemplating doing it.
Oh, you got to do it. No one cares about the score. It's all about just hanging out with other hypnotists.
If I do it, I might have to go for a how do you call it? Not to keep up with tradition last year, but I might have to do the Hawaii coconut bra and a cheap.
People are getting costumes. People are theming their teams. You can do you can take this as exactly as seriously as you want to. The whole idea is to just have fun. And to create a place that's quieter than the alligator bar for us to have more conversations and just roam around and take turns playing each other. And because it's a tournament, people will be playing different teams. So you have all these opportunities to get to know new hypnotists. And that goes back to the idea that the driving force behind this whole thing is generating community and relationships, because that creates better communication and education for professionals.
Okay. So everybody, if you want to do a team with me and be stuck in some cheesy coconut bra and a lei, let me know.
Well, I mean, with a sales pitch like that, I don't know how you're going to have anybody refuse.
Exactly. Get to see this chisel, but as you can hear the bass drum on my belly.
Nice.
Okay, so I think we got everything covered. This went a little bit longer, but
happens.
It does. Let's see. If you look above this video or below, you'll see a link, and you also, if you look either this way or somewhere down here, you'll see a link or an area you can put your name, your best email, and you will get a PDF on how to sell more of your products online. I cannot wait to see you in Vegas. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait to see everybody.
It's fun. I mean, really, if you haven't been, you really don't know what you're missing. It's completely unlike the other conferences. And I mean it. I mean it when I say I want people to come. I want you to come. And it's not about, you know, the money or the success. It is something that we are proud of because it works.
How many people are at this or were at last year's?
I never pay attention to the numbers. I want to say it was like 750 or something like that.
I thought it was higher.
Every
year just doubles and doubles.
Yeah, it could have been higher for sure. It could have been. I know we didn't hit 1,000 last year. I know that we did not hit 1,000 last year. We might have come close though. But yeah, so we'll have a ton of people. You know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds for sure. I mean, we've got hundreds and hundreds just coming to pre and post conferences. I mean, that's gigantic. And it's a blast. And this thing works. And it works because we've got a great staff, a great group of volunteers, wonderful presenters, and people who want to learn. We've got everything covered. And we're just happy to be, you know, kind of behind the scenes while it all happens.
Oh, you know, I'm so glad you guys put this together. When you first told me about HypnoThoughts Live, I was like, God, I wonder if that'd be awesome. And it just gets that hook in you.
Yeah, if you go once, you'll never miss it. It really, people who go once keep coming back. It's great information in a fun environment. I don't know what there is to say that's better than that. Oh, at a really cheap price.
And it's in Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a ton of fun learning stuff. So I want you guys to come. I want you to meet me. I want to meet you. I want to shake your hand. I want to say thanks for coming and supporting the event. And I love getting feedback from people. I love talking to other hypnotists about, you know, how it's going and what they're looking for in order to be more successful, and seeing if I can help be part of that progress for them. So thank you.
And eventually somebody needs to bring you a mechanical sex pig for a present.
I've already received a pig. You know, a piggy bank.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, I got a piggy bank already, but nothing more advanced than that so far, which is just fine with me.
Well, which would be a little creepy, knowing that somebody had to really think how to put everything together.
It is creepy, yeah.
Oh, man, it was great catching up. And then everybody, look above, below, you'll see links, and then put your name, email, all that good jazz.
Thanks, Antonio.
Yeah, it was great. Aloha.